Hello and welcome to the Glorycast. I'm Andy and Katz, and I'm here with Shadows. Our goals for
Yes.
tonight is to talk about some game experience we've had with the new 5v5 beta. Both of us are filthy casuals who invested into the golden ticket. So we're first going to talk about what we've done, what we've seen, and game against some of the better players. We're also going to go over our beta tier list. And so we have some theory crafting that we did before we started playing, and with some experience, we're going to kind of be able to say what we agree with, what we disagree with, and go from there. Anything from you, Shadows?
Nothing really in particular. Just looking forward to kind of going through the experiences we've had, and hopefully we can just have some good expectations for what's on the horizon of the meta for 5v5s and Vainglory.
All right, so we're going to do some of the experiences that I think we've had. So they Shadows and also play with a lone digger who is a rank 9, rank 10 player. We've gone over a lot about the difference with the jungle and like where to start, what to do. So yesterday we had a lot of the carries taking weapon buff to be able to fight in their lane. What do you think on that? Has that changed today?
No, I think I've seen largely the same thing. I saw a couple weapon power junglers that were taking weapon buff, and I don't think that was the right move to do, but they were doing it anyway.
I mean, their ability.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
their ability to clear the jungle with auto attacks that way is better, but for the long run, like it doesn't help that they're clear, especially with like a Kashka who's gonna use their bead to clear the jungle a lot faster than they are with auto attacks.
Well, Akashka should definitely, I don't think, be taking the weapon buff. But I was with Arona, who was doing weapon power, so they took weapon buff. But I think comparing the two, like it's way more beneficial for your carry to have the extra power to push up the lane a little bit more, um, especially if you're starting a little weaker in the duo
So,
lane.
something we were discussing last night was who go to Ghost Wing and who goes to Bear Claw. Or what is it called?
Bear Claw, Black Claw,
Black Claw.
close though, very close.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess I was thinking of donuts or something, or whatever the hell pastries. But um, so something that we've gone back and forth about is where the carries start. I mean, something that I said was that because Ghost Claw spawns earlier, having
Yeah.
two people to take it with a jungler and a mid laner gives you four people. So pushing the carries towards Ghostwing, in my personal opinion, would be more effective because you have four people taking an objective faster instead of two or three.
So I heard some stuff around that it might be better for a bruiser type to be near Ghostwing because I guess they have some better sustain built in. But I agree with you, Andy, that it's probably more beneficial to have a duo lane by Ghostwing just so
Is
that
it?
you can get because early it spawns at 7 minutes, I believe. So yeah, if you have not even if you're fed, you could rely if you guys all have your pots, you could probably reliably 3-man it pretty early
And the other
after it
thing
comes
too
up.
is you look at other MOBAs, whether it's Smite, League, any of them really. If they have a major like neutral objective like that, usually the duo lane goes by it. Gold Fury in League, on a Gold Fury in Smite rather, Dragon in League. It's usually the early objective is near the duo lane.
Yeah, and I mean that
So
for a good reason. I think that makes sense. But of course, I mean, we haven't done ranked yet because we're still trying to, form a little bit more. But we haven't like casual. It's obviously as casuals would be all over the place. People are calling roles, but since the map is inverted for your
mhm.
enemies, it really is just kind of all. It's just kind of all over the place as of right now.
So team composition. Before we get into like roles, who goes where, kind of thing. So how necessary besides a captain role do you think is a tank?
I've seen it. It really obviously depends on kind of how much I think pressure your carries can put on the opposing team. But I I would say your win rate probably goes up if you have a reliable tank, especially when you get out of like in laning phase. You obviously don't necessarily need one, but once you get out of that into team fights, if you don't have a damage sponge, it's really easy to pick off some of your heroes on your team. So yeah, I think a tank is pretty necessary, at least for the late stage of the game. And they have good utility usually with hard
Hmm.
CC and stuff like
A
that.
lot, especially yeah, we've used a lot of their converted captains and turned them into tanks. Lance and Finn come to mind as you'll see them in the tier list. So speaking of tier list, let's get that down. So we're going to start from what we believe is the top of the map, or the non-Ghost Wing side. So we go to top. What do you think now is the top two, or what do you think is S tier in the top lane?
All right, so one pick we have up here, I think Finn. Surprisingly, I haven't seen that much Finn. I think he has really poor mobility, so that could be part of it. And fives, when the map is stretched out a little bit, that can be a little
But
bit
if
of a
you can make a
liability.
teleport play, I mean, now that they're introducing
Exactly.
teleport boots, I mean, I've used them, I think, yesterday when I used the teleport boots, I think to some decent effect. And I think Finn with teleport, you get a sentry in real deep behind the enemy team, and suddenly Finn goes on collapses on them.
Absolutely, and his ability to pull, and his stuns don't work on him, and he's just a giant meat shield. I think I've played a few the games I have played with a Finn on my team. I've literally seen him just barreling down a lane 4v1, and
Hmm.
he has time for the rest of his team to get to him because he does not go down very easily. So I think well his damage output is actually pretty good to start. I think it's somewhere around 95 base damage to start.
Which is nice. He has really high bases, so he can go tank, not afford to
Yeah,
not.
exactly.
So do
So
you
I
still
think
have him in the S tier?
pretty valuable. I'm really hesitant to put people in S tier because I don't think a win is given just by having, or not a win's given, but I don't think he's a must ban or anything like that. So I would probably just put him in A tier because I think S
Okay.
is reserved
All right,
for
so
some
should we
more
go down?
broken heroes.
All right, so then I think we'll just move down into the A tier then for top lane. We have
Yeah, that's fair.
Baptiste, Blackfeather, Churnwalker, Grace, Grumpjaw, Lance, and Rona.
I've seen I'm not sure about Grumpjaw in
Hmm.
that one. The Grumpjaw I've seen hasn't impressed me.
Move them down
Um,
one tier.
I would move him down a tier. Uh, Lance, I I think is in the same wherever Finn is. Lance should be at this point. Except Lance has good damage output too. A
And
little
Lance
less
can go
tanky.
weapon power, which we've seen.
Yeah.
Where
Baptiste, I'm not so sure if Baptiste is A tier.
okay.
Um, I'm just not sure on that one. Blackfeather, I've seen a lot of. I think he could be a reliable A tier hero.
He's a good split pusher, but he is CP.
Yeah.
Blackfeather weapon power weapon Blackfeather got nerfed in one of the more recent patches, and is definitely a weaker top laner.
Yeah. Churnwalker, I'm not sure if he would be. I think where he shines would be more in a support role.
I think he's too much utility and not enough
Yeah, because he's more.
tank.
If I don't think because without somebody to help capitalize on his utility with the chain pulls and stuff, I don't think he would really succeed by himself, at least in a solo lane.
All right, so after our discussion, we now have Blackfeather, Grace, Lance, and Rona as A tier, and now we go move down to the B tier. Because if you
Um,
really do want to tank, I mean, you could probably just take Walker and be a tank
absolutely,
if your team really needed one. So in the B tier, we have Catherine, Glaive, Grumpjaw, Baptiste, and Churnwalker. And Glaive obviously would be a suboptimal build as he is much more of an assassin.
yeah, but he could. I mean, yeah, still doable in the top lane.
Yeah.
Grumpjaw, yeah, I think is good where he is. Baptiste as well. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. And Catherine, I think might be a little bit of a better choice than those, but I don't think
Enough
good
to move her up
enough
a
to go
tier.
A. Yeah,
So she'd be like a B plus tier.
from what I've seen, yeah,
All
she'd
right,
be
now
B
to move
plus
to the
tier.
jungle, to probably the only S tier really in the game right now is Kashka.
Yeah, Koshka is just insane right now. I've seen on the regular like
There's two in
15
almost every
plus
game.
kill games. Yeah, and it's like a must pick. And a lot of times games have just come down to who
Which
plays
Kashka is
Koshka
better?
better.
Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, I think that's a really high ban choice. I would guess. She's pretty broken right now. So I think
All
that's
right,
easy.
going into the A tier, we have Baptiste, Churnwalker, Fortress Glaive, Grumpjaw, Krull, Rhyme, and Taka. What we had
Interesting.
been doing before we started was that you were looking at junglers who were possibly able to offer more utility in the game because we really didn't know where tanks were going to go. As we've seen in League as well as in Smite, there was a time where junglers would be semi-tanky. In Smite, they have Odin, who is usually played as like an off tank, who was actually possibly played in the jungle. So we kind of use that to theory craft in this. Obviously, with Koshkas running around, our information on junglers is truly limited.
Yeah, and I think from the games I've seen and how I think there's definitely I don't think utility junglers are really going to be a meta choice at this point.
No, I agree.
I just don't think they have enough mobility for the role, not high enough damage output, and the utility. It would be better just to stick them in the duo lane.
Yep. So what that leaves us is Baptiste in the jungle, which I've seen 1 or 2 games of. Fortress.
And did that impress you at all?
No, I think I'll move him down. I mean, the thing was he took over the game, but I think it was because the guy who was playing him was good. But I think I'll put him in B tier for now. We need more. Fortress I've seen be very effective. Having 5 wolves as a split pusher late game is really nice. Glaive is really good at ganking lanes with his ability to displace people. Kroll I've seen go 15-0, and I've seen go 10-0. So I think Kroll is much more knowing the hero or the champion versus really the champion being broken. Because he has the high damage output coming out of the bush.
Yeah, I still think that. I mean, the thing is, his kit really helps him. So I think A tier is the right place for him. Yeah. Still, I wouldn't demote him down to B because I think, with a little knowledge on how to play the character, he can be extremely.
And his ultimate is huge too, or his C ability is so nice when you throw it and you get the stun.
Rhyme, I've seen a lot of Ream jungle.
I've seen some.
I've seen a fair amount of it. I think he is pretty good sustained with his fortified health on his ability cast.
And he's got the utility with the slow.
Yeah. I think I've also seen him.
I've seen him in the bot lane too.
In bot, yeah. But I think jungle, to me, seems like the right place for him. I don't know if he's as good, though.
He synergizes better with burst than a lot of the other support like junglers. Sure. All right, into the B tier, we have Alpha, Baptiste, which we already discussed. Flicker, Idris, Oza. Oh, well, Taka's an S tier jungler in 3v3, but in 5v5, I really don't think he's as good because he's such single target damage. Where Koshka has to spin around, Taka really doesn't. So Taka really is much more about the one target burst. So I think he's A, not S. And B, Alpha, Flicker, Idris, Ozo, Petal, and Reza.
I've seen basically no Petal.
I think Petal we really don't know. I mean, I think Petal will go with our Jewel where we don't really know where they'll fit 5v5.
That's fair. Ozo I have seen pretty good utility with his ult, to flip back. Can isolate enemies.
I think that was in our game too against one of the really good groups. They had an Ozo, unless I'm mistaken. We go and he's got our recent games. Gosh, I can't. These icons are so small. Yeah, I think the Ozo here was 3, 2, and 9, and they were their quote unquote carry. And was fairly tanky and did a decent amount of damage, and they had a lot of utility in their team. That one they had a Saw and a whole bunch of other things.
Flicker, I don't know if Flicker really belongs in B tier. I have seen Flicker can in 5s. His ult has potential to be really fantastic at engaging.
He does a lot of damage, and he can allow you. I feel like he's too niche to really be an A tier. He's like that weird in between tier, like Catherine is, where his invisibility is really nice. If you want to go sneak an objective, you just invis everybody and just run to the objective and really coordinated play. His damage output early game is good. He has high bases, but he really doesn't have huge scaling. And I think he requires a lot of coordination to really be effective with.
I think that's a fair analysis.
I think Idris could be good out of the jungle, but I think Idris takes way too long to scale. and be counter jungled and punished so hard that they're really in deep shit, which is kind of what affects Idris in every lane, is that they need that CP spike so hard to get their ranged attacks that it's really rough for them, and being melee weapon power really doesn't, because they're not really a tank and a bruiser and they really don't have the burst an assassin does, they kind of end up in a weird spot.
I've seen Idris played in mid a couple times, and actually I think bot lane one time, and he was pretty good actually. His chakram, I think, is his ability is pretty pokey and can do a lot of damage if you get hit by it multiple times. Relatively predictable, but
it's
yeah,
straight too, and it's fairly slow.
Yeah, but that's where I've seen him do better than I've seen him do in jungle.
So, and we have Reza as B tier. What do you think? I had a game last night with the Reza where they went off. Where
Interesting.
The Reza in my game was 13, 8, and 13.
Damn.
It was quite big.
Yeah, that's surprising because actually the other Rezas I've seen have some have been bad, but some have been pretty okay. But struggled against Akashka or Ataka.
And the 5v5 as well. And their damage is so situational because Reza needs that auto attack afterwards to really have the damage go off because of his passive.
So I think he really excels in laning phase where you can get some of those easier ganks.
And I think he also he does really well in skirmishes. So if you want to play with a black feather and they match you, you're only going to have a 4v4, 3v3 team fight, where the Reza burst is really nice because then you're not dealing with a tank that you have to deal with your black feather. So I think Reza, kind of like Flicker, is a much more situational pick where they can be really good, but they also require a lot of coordination with your team.
Yeah. I think that's right.
All right, so we're going to go to mid now. We originally had Varia as an S tier mid laner, but I don't think she is anymore.
No, I don't think so either.
I think she's A.
I think she does have actually I don't know. Maybe I would put her S because I feel like
I have Vox as S. Do you think she's as good as Vox?
Maybe not. Maybe she's A plus.
Yeah, I think she's between A and S, but I don't think she's good as Vox. I think Vox is our S tier. I think CP Vox with 5 people to bounce stuff around is stupid strong.
Yeah, and Varia's a little more doesn't work in as many situations as far as team fighting, and
she can be punished harder, and she can be punished harder in laning phase too, but the high mana cost with the ability to be ganked from either side as well. Her dash with the charge up time.
But late game, she can do
boatloads of damage
to you in a heartbeat.
She has really good burst late game, but with defensive items being so common currently, as well as the fact that you're doing 5v5, so you have to really watch out for a tank and a support, or a tank and a captain, where in a 3v3 you only have to find a captain to deal with, which really makes Varia's damage kind of harder to confirm. There's a build that I have been trying, if any of our listeners want to try it, where you actually go a max CDR build for Varia, and you work more on her lightning spears. The reason why I like this build a little more is it also gives you more energy recharge, which is really nice because she's so mana hungry. It also gives you don't have to walk up to auto attack to get off her chain lightning ability as her passive, so you're able to play safer, and because you still can build Dragon's Eye, which gives you a 4-second cooldown, which requires 4 seconds. If you have your lightning bolt up every 2 seconds, you can definitely keep those procs. You can mix in an auto attack here and there, but it allows her, in my opinion, to play safer. So anyone who wants to try it and get back to us, that'd be awesome. Yeah. So now we're going to A tier, where we have Baron, Celeste, Samuel, and Varia, as we just discussed.
I think I like that for the most part. Baron, the only thing that worries me a little bit is his mobility.
Yeah, but as a mid laner, you just play safe, and you have
that's true. You could just hug turret.
Yeah, well, that and his A ability has such good range. You kind of just launch it, walk away, launch it, walk away, launch it, walk away.
Game, his damage outburst is just insane.
Yeah, so I think Baron is actually, if as long as you can't play for a kill in your lane, it's just a waste of time as Baron. especially a CP Baron, because you need to scale, and you're trying to get the rockets to explode on them, and your rockets. So really,
Yeah,
you play that as a farm lane, so that way late game you can play back and play as a long range artillery, which is I
sure.
actually think what the recommended build, the CP
Yeah,
recommended one calls is artillery.
because even just focusing farm in mid lane with Baron, whoever you're laning against is going to have a hell of a time trying to get their minions pushed to your tower because Baron can just obliterate a minion line. So yeah.
All right, now we go to B tier. We have Adagio, Idris, Crystal Power, Scarf, and Sky.
Adagio mid I haven't seen, so I'm a little hesitant about that. I think Adagio is obviously much more tailored to the support lane.
I think people haven't tried him mid because he does do well as a CP Adagio, and people really are just so set in their ways from 3v3, because that's what this was Lone's idea, was to actually play him mid lane too, which we haven't had a chance.
I think the only thing that worries me about his mid lane is if he's by himself and he's going to be responsible for doing the damage too, rather than being in a support lane and being in the duo lane, and playing support, and where he has a carry doing the damage for him. Essentially, he's going to be really mana hungry early.
I'm looking at Varia. Varia's just as bad. A lot of these heroes really run out of mana quick.
Varia's got better damage output than Adagio.
That's true.
So,
but yeah, I mean, Adagio, somebody has to just try and kind of get back to us. But for the rest of it, we have Idris, which I believe is the same issue as before, is the scaling required is rough. Scarf is no mobility outside of his ult that makes him go faster, which is really rough.
He is a great situational matchup though for some champions. If you see a Saw in mid lane, we don't even have Saw up here. I've seen Saw mid.
Oh, Saw, yeah, so Saw's A tier.
Saw's A tier, yeah, easily. So yeah, a Scarf is like a good counter pick to a Saw, or to maybe even a Baron, someone who doesn't have a lot of mobility, because
you can bully them out of lane with Scarf.
Exactly.
But with Koshka's running around, it's kind of rough to play Scarf.
It is, absolutely. So I think Scarf is, I think at this point, only viable as really a counter pick.
Yeah.
Another mid laner.
All right. So let's go to carries now. So let's move. Let's move up Saw first off, out of B to A.
Yeah.
All right. So in A tier, we have Gwen, Kestrel, Ringo, and Saw.
I think that's pretty good. Right. Recently, I've been playing a fair amount of Gwen, and she's actually really impressed me. Her A gives you some vision on people and she's got pretty good damage output. Her cleanse is nice, and her ultimate is just fantastic utility, and at this point, really high damage.
And she scales so hard with her buckshot off of auto attack damage.
Yeah.
I have a highlight video of a triple kill. I mean, I really didn't do much of scale, but you can just see where I four-shot a Samuel with her auto attacks. Her weapon output, her weapon power output is just huge.
Yeah.
Kestrel scales so hard off auto attacks. Kestrel is a lot like a Jinx in League of Legends, or an Apollo, or an Artemis from what's it called, from Smite, where they scale so well with attack speed and damage. Where I've actually played Kestrel crit, and as we get into a little bit of kind of what we think about items a little bit so far, after we go through the weapon build, the tier list of the heroes, Kestrel is somebody who I feel much more comfortable playing with crit on him, because he just scales so well with his passive and moving around, and his A ability also can crit.
Yeah, Ringo, and I think he's one of the heroes that is able to stay pretty potent for the entire course of the game. Laning phase, he's got fantastic pokes, and then in team fight, and then he's got obviously great if you're good at skill shotting, at least with his ult. And then team fights, his damage output is just really high because of his attack.
He requires a lot of good positioning, very similar to 3v3, where you really have to position well with him. Ringo, I just think is good 3v3, good 5v5. Like, he just does a ton of damage.
I think he's really solid. I'm not sure that I would prefer him over Gwen or Kestrel, But I think he's a really solid choice that you can't go wrong with, and is again with other A tier heroes, his kit is working for him. So
And he can melt objectives too, which really what makes Saw so
yeah,
effective with his attack speed ramp up. In the B tier, we have Baron Weapon Power, Idris Crystal Power, and Sky.
yeah, I don't have too much. I mean, all these heroes we've seen we've covered in other lanes, so I don't have too much to say on them. I
The only one we
think
really haven't covered so far is Sky. I think Sky requires so much skill to play and knowing how to dash, how to use her passive on top of her A,
yeah,
where I think um, Sky's kit is kind of wonky in 5v5.
yeah, and
More so, I
I
mean the
think
old.
he has a higher floor, and
I think
her.
Sky's actually a girl. I think.
Oh yeah,
Oh.
it is a girl. I just misspoke.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think Sky has just a higher skill floor, and then this her skill ceiling. I'm not sure on, but to me it doesn't seem. I mean, it seemed like with any hero, if you're the best at playing them, then of course they're going to make them look really good. But I just haven't seen too much of that. So
In the support, so I'm going down to support or captains. Me and Shadows, we just call them supports. We would try to call them captains for this.
yeah,
S tier, Finn. We had our friend Lone Digger, who plays him to a pretty high level. He's not very good at him. Was just the amount of CC he offers. I think Finn is definitely S tier as a support.
I think so too. He's got we mentioned it before, but he's got a lot of the stuff you look for in a support. He's
And
got yeah.
yep.
Oh, okay, I was just gonna say his great CC, as you said, great defense, great HP, and he starts out with pretty solid damage. So yeah,
The other nice thing we forgot earlier was that because of Finn's ultimate, he can dictate when a fight happens. There
absolutely.
really is not a lot of peel heroes. They're really in the game. Heroes of the Storm, there's a character who can pull heroes away. There is nothing like that in this. So if Finn ults and pulls people in, the fight's gonna happen, or you're gonna lose two members of your team. That's really it. So Finn in organized play, I think, is amazing with his ultimate. It's got a massive hitbox. It can pull multiple heroes, which is the only one of its kind. Blitzcrank in League, Sylvanas and Smite, they're all one hero
Yeah.
pulls. Where I think last night I watched our friend pull three people into a fight. It was like, well, and it's hard CC too. So I do believe they also are locked out of doing anything once they're pulled too.
I think speaking to kind of how good he's going to be in coordinated fights, not only does he force fights, but I could also just foresee um, an enemy teams going for Black Claw or Ghostwing. Finn just goes in there, ult, pulls him out, goes steal the objective.
Very sure he can, yeah, but he really has an ult that can really be a difference maker in games. So now
Yeah,
to the A
absolutely.
tier, which is a little different. This is a very interesting for the captains because this is half tank, half healing. So we have Adagio,
Yep.
Turnwalker, Grace, Lance, and Lyra. Lyra.
I would actually promote Arden to A
Oh yeah,
tier. Arden's the favorite of a lot of people right now. I still think Finn's a little higher, but just in my opinion. But Arden's got great. He's great. He's really great in the support role. But then on top of that, his ultimate again is great for isolating certain targets and letting your carry finish them off. And in team fights, obviously, it has a great amount of utility as
yeah.
well.
As we saw, we had the big game last night where let's see. So our Arden went 2-5 and 22, and their Arden went 10-9 and 8. So Ardens on both sides had huge effects, built mostly support. Ours had one damage item, and theirs had none, I believe. It's really interesting
Mm.
because Lone Digger does something as a captain that you don't see as common as other captains. Is that he builds? There's a new item that they made for 5v5 that allows you to have more. I forget what they're called. The wards, the cameras.
The scout
Not
traps.
the scout traps. It just builds like wards. You can just the scout.
Scout pack is the utility, I
Yeah,
think.
and he
Pack.
builds that and loves that item. So obviously, it's really effective. And so Arden's build, because of the shield and everything, really kind of opens him up because the shield gives you the tankiness you want. So I mean, maybe that does make him one of the kind of the in between A and S tier because of the shield and the utility. Uh,
Yeah,
so the rest of them, we have Adagio and Lyra who are healers. And we've got Trent, Walker, Grace, and Lance who are much more focused on crowd control and being
yeah.
tankier.
I would maybe say Adagio B tier because I think what he does, Lyra does better. She has a better
Yeah,
heal, and she's just better in the support role.
I agree. But I think that our A tiers are higher than our B tiers. Our B tiers, just for information, are Catherine and Lorelei.
I haven't seen much of Lorelai at all, but I mean,
Okay.
but I think I've seen one or two games with her, and it hasn't impressed me. What I've seen, watching Twitch streams, all
Hmm.
of that hasn't really impressed me. Um,
And then Catherine's utility and everything really is outshined by everybody else's.
yeah, I think that's what it comes down to. At this point, I don't really think there's that many heroes that are like their kit really works against them. I think all the heroes at this point are fairly balanced and pretty viable. If you're good at them, I just think obviously there's little discrepancies that make the differences in tiers.
And because of some of the activatables give healing, Fountain gives healing as well as some of the healers, that in reality, having a healer over CC really doesn't make that much of a difference, and it's much more about comfort in playing the captain role in the bot lane than it is about playing healer over CC. And if you pick a lot of high CC in the solo lane, then you can bring a healer and everything else. And then if you keep your tank in longer in the fight than their tank, tanks can really mess up a carry's day too if they can't line.
I agree with that.
All right, so now I didn't write this in the document, but we are going to talk a little bit about. Oh, actually, I did. Item paths and what's effective. Something that me and Shadows agreed on, at least yesterday, is that crit is ass in this. Crit is bad.
Yeah. Because I think the way crit works is you need for higher crit damage, like raw crit damage, you need more crit items. So for all this gold you're spending on crit items, where you could just be getting straight attack power, straight attack speed, we don't at this point we don't think the trade off is really worth it to go for full crit.
It takes so long, and the items are expensive.
Yeah. What items? We'll start with carries. I guess what
Yeah.
items are really sticking out to you as? I mean, I guess there's
Sword
not really
Blade.
there's a limited selection at this point,
I
but
mean, I think Sword Blade and Bone Saw. I like to go
absolutely,
defensive boots. I think having defensive boots on really everybody is really nice. It gives you a little
yeah.
more health. It makes
Um,
you a little tankier.
I've been building Serpent Mask a good amount as an offensive item. I'm not sure if you should go Serpent Mask or Shiv. At
I
this
think it
point,
depends on the enemy team. If they have like a Samuel, you have to go Poison Shiv.
yeah,
Mortal Wound works like Grievous Wounds in League of Legends. It lowers their healing effectiveness. So into somebody who is lifesteal based like a Samuel, you really need to kind of cut that out and use a Poison Shiv,
yeah,
which is very effective. I think Sorrow Blade first item is almost a necessity.
that's what I've been building. I mean, yeah, because I mean, for the most part, you just want to get that damage spike, and then you can focus on other things if that's
You
life steal, attack speed, whatever.
you spike so hard, especially with our A tier carries. Kestrel's B gets better because when at 150 weapon power, they can activate it almost instantly after being attacked. Gwen's auto attack and buckshot passive is wild. It also increases her slow.
Yeah,
Ringo has, I believe, an attack speed modifier. Also, as Gwen's B gives her more attack speed as well.
yeah,
Saw because of the ramp up as well. All four of these are really good with weapon with
yeah.
um Sorrow Blade first item. I also believe Bone Saw is really good. I think because you're able to shred people's armor, it's not a bad second or third item. I think Sustain is really good to start out with in lane. Just buying the first Pete of a Poison Shiv or a Serpent Mask, just because you can stay in lane longer, you can recover from trades. I mean, you look at League of Legends, their bot lane heroes are for the last 2 years have taken some kind of sustain, whether it was the sustain keystone or fleet footwork. Now they take an ability to give them life steal. So I mean, if it works in one of the biggest MOBAs in the world, I do believe in Dota they take it. In Smite, a lot of heroes in general that are attack damage take death toll. So I do believe following other MOBAs, you will take a lifesteal item first. You may not complete it first, but that 4% vampirism or whatever it is really effective early game.
And in Smite, just that's more what I've played. That's a pretty standard second item to build on here, or first true item to build on heroes is Devourer's Gauntlet, which is a stacked item, but it gives you significant life steal.
Exactly. Yeah, you build that first in Smite 'cause you have to build stacks. But I think in this, I think it's easier to build either Poison Shiv or Serpent's Mask second.
Yeah, I've
I think
generally been going.
they're really effective.
I've generally been going Sorrow Blade and then Serpent Mask or
Serpents
Poison Shiv.
Yeah.
And then that's where it changes a little bit. It becomes more situational.
Because if they have a tank, if they're starting to force team fights, you're really gonna want to get that bone saw right away.
Yep, definitely.
You really don't want to deal with that shit. They're gonna blow you up,
Yep.
and you're gonna want to pound through it. It works really effectively too, because you can shred armor with it. That if you have a Koshka or something, and they're really not on top of you, you shred whatever base armor they have. So you're doing borderline something in MOBAs called true damage, which is really effective. And then you're really hurting them because you don't have any armor mitigation in the calculations, which is nice. After Bonesaw, you can go crit. I mean, then it really depends. In the game the last game Shadows played, he went duo crit items, and he went I and the other crit attack speed item, and was where are you on the damage chart for your team? Kestrel with 40 key damage. That's a lot.
Didn't do that well that game.
Yeah, you're pretty low.
Better.
Yeah, we'll go to your 11-4-4 game.
Yeah.
5th at 11.
That
All right.
one ended early. Yeah.
All right, but regardless, probably the first item to go was Sorrow Blade. Second item to go would be Poison Shiv or Serpent's Mask. For support, it's the same as 3v3. You're gonna want to go the Reflect Block final item for your team. I like the movement speed boots that allow you to give your team fast. It allows you to engage, disengage. I think Finn with a on-demand for his team, especially if you're a support and you're playing a Lyra support and you have a Finn solo lane, the ability to speed him up is really nice. So I think you should build the team speed boosts. Fountain's really good. So the support items from 3v3 really do carry over well. There's also the item that allows you to ward whatever you want in 5v5. I think that is a necessity for supports, or for rather captains.
Yeah. Agree with that pretty much.
Yeah, that one's pretty easy. The mid lane, do you think the thing is you don't really play a lot of crystal power mid laners?
The mid lane I've been playing has been weapon power. I've been playing Saw mostly in mid lane. So
Saw in mid lane, same idea. You go Sword Blade first.
That's so nice
and Serpent second. Yep.
Neglect attack speed. So Saw in the end game is just in team fights he's just unstoppable.
Yeah, don't die. Blow him up first. I think what you really want to do, depending on your I think you really need to understand your matchup of what you build for. As a mid laner, I think Dragon's Eye is a really good item. You see it a lot in 3v3 as well. I think being able to do more damage and getting more base crystal power while you fight is really huge. I think that's a good item. I think a lot of people, rushing CDR or cooldown reduction early really isn't bad, as you can have spammable abilities. All of those CDR items also give you a more energy cooldown. So it really depends. I mean, I think mid lane is much about comfort. There really is no meta first item. A lot of people like to rush the big damage, a crystal power item first. You can, but I don't think it's really a necessity because it doesn't have any really good passives. And it's like League of Legends where they have Rabadon's Death Cap that gives you an extra 35%, or Rod of Tahuti in Smite. Rod of Tahuti is not built very often, and neither is Rabadon's Death Cap. I think jungle, like mid, same thing.
I would
Yeah.
agree with that. And I was just looking at some of my earlier games.
Mm-hmm.
Vox definitely S tier.
Yeah.
Or
he
the
just
next
like
closest hero had like 16k damage. He was at somewhere close to 40, and that was like across the like just regular. That was standard.
yeah. There was a game where he was like there was a game that we played the other day where he was 7-0-7. He was like one of their worst players and just crushed us. Like it just
Yeah.
Vox's ability with the damage bouncing is just massive. Jungle a lot like mid laners, really depends on your play style. Like I think Taka and Kashka, the item that allows you to auto attack for 14% health is really nice. It gives you much more guaranteed burst. I mean, it really just depends on kind of your comfort of hero specific kind of items for the crystal power items.
Yeah.
What about on top laners on the tanks? You haven't. I mean, you played some tank, right?
I've played some. Yeah, I think that's really variable because top laner at this point to me is pretty. Yeah, I think top laner to me right now goes in a lot of different directions just in who you would pick to be your top laner. So I think that really depends. I think top laner has a lot more since it's kind of isolated, and 1v1s. It's a lot more counter building than you would see.
It really depends on them too. You have a saw, you build the anti-attack speed item.
I
So
think also, well, yeah, just a lot of it depends on the heroes as well because if you've got a Finn in top lane, you pretty much neglect damage items just because you're for at least a little bit. If
you
you're
haven't
all,
built teleport boots, have you?
I have built teleport
On the
boots
top lane of the teleport boots.
on the top, except I've been playing locked camera, so teleport boots are pretty useless because you can move maybe 5 feet.
See, I think for me, I really like teleport boots. Having coming from League, I really don't think lock camera is that great,
I
especially
don't
with
think
the
it's
with
that great.
in 5v5, how fights are just happening everywhere because nobody knows objectives yet, nobody knows what to do, when to do it.
Yeah,
And because of that, fights are breaking out all the time. And because you're the tank, you really want to soak damage. You really want to keep your carries alive. The ability to teleport into a fight is huge.
yeah, and I
Right?
think I agree with that. I think teleport boots will see a lot more use as it goes on, just because, yeah, as you said, that utility. Um,
It
yeah,
also gives you a free early back too. You can like get enough for boots before jungle shops even spawn. Teleport back to lane and then just go back to farming like nothing happened.
and that's one thing I haven't seen a lot. Since there's river shops on like some other MOBAs, you don't need to back unless you're
But
like low in
but
health
when do river shops spawn?
at 5 minutes. So generally, what I think what I've seen at least for playing carry, if you're farming well, you'll be maybe at somewhere between like 2,300 and it depends if you've gotten kill or not. Somewhere around I think 2,300 gold by the time river shops spawn, maybe more.
But see, as a tank, you can go do that. Get your boots done, and then come back.
Oh, and I'm saying that's
And then
really useful.
you have completely done boots. You have more movement speed. You can rotate faster. You can run to the shop and back.
I'm
And
saying that's really useful because it's also a free heal for
okay,
you. Because
definitely.
that's one thing at least I've definitely felt is since there's river shops, you feel a lot of pressure to not back because you're missing out on farm. You're letting your lane get pushed. When you
But
could, and it definitely obviously not back for items because there's the river shop right there. So unless you're getting really bullied out of lane, you don't really have a reason to back, and that's why I think that you could actually stay on top if you have those teleport boots because you get your health back up, don't have to waste your pot, and then teleport back in, and you're good.
and then by the time river shop spawns, your teleports back up.
Exactly.
It's on a fairly low cooldown.
Yeah.
All right. Do you have anything else you want to add?
Not particularly. Just hoping this was some good analysis for everybody, and we'd love to hear from all of you who are listening. Your thoughts.
All right. Places to hear from us. I will be streaming at twitch.tv/AndyandCats. You can also find my Twitter at twitter.com. I do believe my Twitter handle or the Twitter URL is a furry man. Let me check on that real quick. No, all right. God. Jesus, bear with me, please. But my Twitter, but yeah, my Twitter handle is Andy and Cat. Oh, it's at Juverine. Sorry, it's at JEWVERINE. Or if you just search Andy and Cats, I am pretty sure I'm the only one that shows up. All right, but otherwise, thanks for coming. We were Glorycast, and we hope to hear from you soon. Okay.
See ya.
All right, how do I fuck? Yeah, I'm gonna have to edit this because I think your times you were
I
loud.
think it's
Craig, come on.